So, how to buy apartments? Look, a lot of people get caught up in the belief pattern that you have to be an expert, it costs too much money, and deals are too hard to find. And it's just not the case. It's just not the case. I understand why people thought that because so did I, right? When I got started, I mean, gosh, I've been in real estate most of my life because I grew up through family with it. My grandmother, God bless her soul, 91 before she passed, but she taught a lot of our family about real estate and passed that on to my dad, who then kind of took it to the next step. And he did a lot of the build and sell game where he would build homes, sell homes, right? Build communities, sell communities. He was never in the long-term hold game, which is the apartment, the cash flow, right? Cash is king. And that was a great thing because you could make a lot of money, and we're going to talk about that. But it was also not a great thing because you can also get caught in market cycles. And if you're improperly leveraged, the whole thing can implode. And we're going to walk through that. And we're going to show you why apartment investing and why it's such a valuable tool, depending on where you're at and what you're trying to do. So let's get into it. So I asked you this question as we kind of get going, but if I can show you how to buy a 10 to 30 unit apartment deal in the next 90 days with, say, $18,000 out of pocket, would that be worth it to you? If I could show you how you could avoid income tax for the remainder of your human existence on this planet, would that be worth it to you? I asked you those questions. Yes, yes, and yes. I know everybody says that because it's the Holy Grail. And I won't get into the grave detail of this, but you have to understand that the United States economy, as you know it, capitalism, as you know it, was designed for both types of groups. You're either a creator or you're a contributor. You're a creator or you're a contributor. You need to move a lot of money so the IRS can give you a lot of tax breaks. If you don't move a lot of money in the US capitalistic system, you will get minimal tax breaks. This is why if you're a 9-to-5er in here tonight and you're working for the man, and you're tired of the rat race and you're pissed off because you don't get a lot of tax breaks and you're paying a lot of tax and all this other stuff's coming out of your paycheck every Friday, that's because you're not moving enough money. Period. It's real simple. IRS, you're not moving enough money, they don't like you enough. So therefore, they reduce your taxable events to reduce your write-offs. If you move a lot of money, meaning you're an investor, you are a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, and you're moving a lot of money in the US economy, you're going to get a ton of tax breaks because that's just how the capitalistic system moves. And there's a lot of details and reasons as to why that is. But once you understand that game of money, you'll be able to do this and do it well. Okay, so that's kind of from a high level of what we're trying to get to, because it's not what you make, it's what you keep. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. And all of you know this. So let's move on. But if I can show you that, that'll be worth it to you. Beautiful. So let's give you a perfect example. Here's a 20-unit deal in the Midwest for $15,000 out of pocket. Could you own it? I mean, it sounds crazy. Trust me, when people, they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. How could I actually do that? Here's how you're actually going to do it, okay? But it's important to understand that it doesn't just start with that. It doesn't just start with that. I mean, I go all the way back into 2008. Full disclaimer to you, you're not going to be automatically rich and a millionaire by getting one apartment building. It doesn't work like that. But you are setting yourself up and setting the stage for your future self and what you're trying to do. You kind of mentioned why you're here tonight. That's all going to do that for you. It's all going to do that for you. But a typical apartment building, a 10 to 30 unit apartment building, okay, if you buy a 10 to 30 unit apartment building, on average, just so you know, free cash flow to you in your pocketbook every month is on average $2,500 to $3,500 a month per 10 to kind of 30 unit apartment deal. So I get this question all the time. Justin, how can I get $10,000 to $20,000 in monthly passive income from apartment investing? 3 to 4 deals. 3 to 4 deals. And you can pull that off. Okay, 3 to 4 deals in that space on average, you're going to be able to pull that off. Okay, so that's just so everybody understands that from a high level here tonight. Because I get a lot of questions on that all the time. And just giving it straight up how it's going to go down, that's how it's going to go down. And is it easy? No, it's not easy. But if you learn the skill sets of how to do this, which I'm going to show you here in just a minute, you can actually pull this off. So when I got started, we did it with a $100,000 condo. This was in 2010. $25,000 down, $75,000 loan. This thing cash flowed beautifully. I mean, it was only $570 a month, but our cash on cash return was silly, right? Because if you're making $570 on $25,000, but $570 a month on 25 grand, that return, that cash on cash return is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Okay. Looking at some of your thing, you built 4 condos. Yep. House valued at 25% off, 25% correction during the TARP and the financial crisis. Oh man. Yeah, it was a wild time, wasn't it? 2008, it was a wild time. There were stories. I mean, just to kind of give you perspective on this. So I'll never forget this, you guys. It was April 8th. I mean, we're coming up on it, for the love of God. April 8th, 2008, 8:35 in the morning, a lot of eights. My dad walks into my office, sits down, and he says, the bank is called. They're shutting down all the loans. Shutting down all the loans. And I told him, I said, like, they can't do that. Like, they can't do that. We have loans. Like, what do they mean? They can't. They said, we don't care. Sue us. Right? They knew that everybody was going down. And so they were obviously going to go into their corner, and they said, you guys go into yours and figure it out. So I had to watch my dad, who at that time, you know, just given what he was in, was highly over leveraged, right? Highly over leveraged, which led to a massive bankruptcy for him. And I had to watch that all go down and help consolidate as we went through it. Pretty wild, pretty wild. I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever been through anything like that, but it was pretty wild. But I learned an enormous amount from it. I learned the power of cash flow, number one, the power of not being over leveraged, because you can ride through any market. Everyone in here, everybody's worried about recessions, this, recessions, that. You're not in a recession. You don't give a rat's you know what about recessions if you have cash flowing assets and you're not over leveraged, because you'll just ride right through them. Which is why I knew that I came back and I was going to rebuild this thing. I was going to build it based on cash flow, and I was going to build it on apartments and cash flowing assets. And that's what we've done. That's what we've done. So what's funny is you learn. So from 2008, kind of fast forward, 2010, kind of 8-10, I was an asset manager for all the major banks. I was the guy behind the scenes that was handling all these REOs, foreclosures, everything around the United States of America for a lot of the major banks: EMC, Chase, Countrywide, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, I mean, B of A, I mean, WAMU. If anybody's remember these banks, we were doing all their foreclosures for them, right? We were giving them out to all the realtors around the country. It was wild. I mean, it was a crazy time. But if you remember that, I mean, chime in if you remember, like, if you were involved in that in any way, shape, or form in that side of it. But it taught me a lot, right? It teaches you, you know, how irrational the banks are, number one. It teaches you how a lot of it could have been avoided. You know, it was kind of teed up, but it teaches you a lot of things, hey, not to over leverage and make cash flow king. And so here we are, you know, with a reset market, and now we're many, many years later, but you learn a lot. So that was that time frame. I became a real estate broker, came out, started doing a lot of short sales as well. I was a massive short sale guy, helping family owners, because I was coming through. Think about it. I came from the banks. I could walk right into a family's home, sit down at their couch, go through all their loans they were going through, and walk them right through it and get them out of financial problems, because I could go right through exactly how the banks are going to look at it and present them with a solution, and bada bing, bada boom. We did a lot of short sales to save a lot of family, a lot of financial headaches. I loved it. But that kind of got us into buying cash flow. So in 2010, we bought our first condo. And then from there, it went into duplexes and fourplexes and triplexes and quads, all the way up until the point we got to about, I mean, I'll kind of walk it through here. We got to about 20 units and $3.5 million of assets. But to kind of bring you back to my realtor games, I always like to showcase this a little bit with a little blooper ad to kind of show you back in the day when we were doing a lot of short sales and doing a lot of residential real estate, what it could look like. So this is just a little bit of fun for that, okay? Family home in North Pacific Beach at a fantastic value. Do that again. Good? Yeah. Sure. It's a thing in check or in okay. That is Justin Brennan with no HOAs. You're in between Pacific Beach and La Jolla. It's a good family home. Good location, great neighborhood, and that's pretty much it. Message me button below, and I'll get right back to you. Any other final things you want to throw in there? I'm sweating like a dog right now. Wow. Wow. I was so much younger then. I looked so much younger then. Holy cow. I'd like to go back to that. So, and, you know, some fun little bloopers for you as we keep going here. So one unit, just to kind of show you how this game of scalability can work, and how when you leverage some of your capital with other people's money, OPM, right, that whole thing you've heard before, this is how you can pull it off. So one unit, 2010, $100,000. Then by 2018, we had 20 units, about $3.5 million, all with mostly our own money. Okay, so pay attention to this because I'm going to show you how this game works. Now, fast forward 2018, 20 units, 3.5 million. Now, would you agree that people have like defining moments in their life? And it can be due to tragedy, it could be due to different circumstances, moments, whatever it could be. It could have been in the 2008 financial crisis. And that was a great motivator for me, right? Great motivator. But usually I think it's when you have perspective on life and moments happen and you realize that life's short. Okay, life's short. So this triggering moment for me in 2018, this gets a little bit of personal, but I think it's important for people to understand this because this is what gets you the fire in the belly. Everybody gets you the fire in the belly. So my sister passed in 2018. She was 46. She was 46. And, way too young. I mean, it's crazy. And I don't know if anybody's had like a family member pass, but it's wild. That's young, like way, way too young. And you sit there and you realize like, wow, like the perspective on how short life can be, that's what like fires you up. And I sat there and I said, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I'm going to make this happen and I'm going to go for it because I knew where we could go. I was just holding myself back. I wasn't jumping off the cliff, right? You get to the edge and sometimes you just need to go and you need to allow the how to show up, right? And if you're in this position in your life where you're sitting there going, you know what, I can do this. I believe in myself. I can do this. I just need a little nudge, a little jump. Then this is that moment for you. And if that's tonight, rock and roll, because that's what it was for me. And so sitting there in 2018, I said, life's too short. So I literally, this is kind of crazy how this happens because like a day earlier, I got an email about a conference coming up on the East Coast in Boston and about syndications. And about 3,000 people at it and blah, blah, blah. And I like kind of brushed it off. And then the next day I'm sitting there and this is after like this has all gone down and stuff. And I just said, let's go. I booked my plane flight. I booked the tickets. I didn't care how much it cost. I said, I'm going to make this happen because I need to learn this game of OPM, other people's money, right? We've been doing this. We've been doing okay. It's not like we were doing poorly. We were doing okay. We had $3.5 million in assets, but I knew where we wanted to go. And I said, let's go. So this is where I learned it. Went out there, it was in Boston, Massachusetts, back in 2018, met with thousands of different people, I shook hands, did all that stuff. But this was the triggering point that triggered this. And by 2018, 2019, we began our rise. And where we're at and where we're trying to go to 10,000 units. And as of today, as we speak, we're just under 1,000 and about $185 million in assets. But it took learning the OPM game and how we could take some of our equity, right, scale it to the moon. Because keep this in perspective, we had 20 units and 3.5 million and we owned 100% of it. Today, we have 180 plus million under 1,000 units, but we have 40% ownership of $185 million in real estate. Or we could have had, 100% of 3.5. You can do the math. So that's why this is so powerful. This is why you need to learn it. Because once you do this, you can actually scale money, but you're going to start with your first deal. Get the first one. Let's get you your first 10 to 30 unit apartment deal, and then you can rock and roll. Okay, but it starts with the first one. So that's what we're here tonight. So it starts with the mindset. How can you buy a 10 to 30 unit apartment building in the next 90 days with 18, 20, less than $30,000 out of pocket? How can you pull that off? Well, you're going to have to do a few things, okay? You're going to have to do a few things. You got to get past a few belief patterns. The first one is the false belief that you need a lot of money to get started. That's just false. Belief pattern number 2 that we need to nix tonight is that multifamily is too complex, right? And you need to be an expert only. And then lastly, beyond that is the belief pattern that deals are too hard to find. BS. We have a software that we have now that we hand out to people. It's just learning how to do them. You're going to find deals in one of two ways, direct to broker or direct to seller. And I'm going to show you that tonight. Okay. So let's get to number 1, that you need a lot of money, and let's kind of throw that out the window. Let's break down this deal with everybody here tonight. Let's presume that this is a 15 unit deal, $100,000 a unit, right? That's $1.5 million. You're going to do some renovations on it. You're going to improve the building, value add, as they call it, the BRRRR method. That's $100,000. And then you have closing costs. Let's say you're just basic closing costs on the deal. So that's 50 grand. So you're all in at $1,650,000 total cost in the deal. This is how this thing breaks down financially from a high level. So everybody understands this. $1,150,000 is going to be your loan. It's about 70% loan to value, or in this case, loan to cost. That loan, just so everybody understands this, that loan is easier than getting a $200,000 house loan. Do you know why? Yeah, so it's very simple. An apartment building is a business, right? So it's a business. It has revenue, it has expenses, and it has a profit, i.e. net operating income. The bank looks at that net operating income. Can that NOI, that net operating income, pay us our mortgage every month? Real simple. If it can, they're going to throw the money out the front window of the bank to you. Go buy the building. If it cannot, they're not going to give you the money. You are secondary in the process. You're important, but you're secondary. They're not going to look at you and your personal financials to really substantiate the loan, which is why it's easier to get that loan than a $200,000 residential house loan. Because when you get a residential house loan, they're looking at you personally. Can this person pay us back? Can this person pay us every month? Much different in commercial and multifamily. Make sense? So that's why that works. Now, equity. You got 500 grand you got to bring in to close it. Now, most people, this is where it stops them. They don't even get started at this point because they're like, okay, I can get a loan of this. I don't have 500 grand. How do I get 500 grand? I can't do that. How does that even happen? This is how it happens, guys. When you syndicate, right? The term syndication, all that means is you're collaborating money. You're kind of like the orchestrator of money. You're like the hedge fund manager of money for an apartment building. That's all it means. So when you hear that term syndicating, it's just a sexy word for collaborating with money. That's all it means. You're going to be responsible for about 10% of the equity, right? In this case, $500,000 in equity. That's your down payment. You're responsible for 10% of that. That's 50 grand. The rest of it's coming in through OPM, other people's money. That could be friends and family. It could be seller financing, creative financing. It could be people in our community that like the deal and want to jump into it. It could be private lenders, all the above. And if the deal makes financial sense, the money will chase it. It always has, it always will. So focus on finding good deals and the money will find you. The deal comes first. It's deal, debt, equity. Deal, debt, equity, in that order, every single time. And you'll lock and load, okay? So you need to find good deals. That is the root of it all. Find good deals, the money will chase you, okay? So, moving on. Good question just came in. Multifamily, so Suvi is a sponsor syndicator. I've been syndicating the deals, have raised over 10 million. Good for you, buddy. That's awesome. I'm tired of doing the raises and tired of dealing with the investors. But I now have a lot of experience with operations, blah, blah, blah. Is all you teach is how to syndicate? If yes, you're not interested. Yeah, Suvi, do we teach just to syndicate? We teach how to find deals, how to analyze them, how you raise capital, how you close them, and how you manage them. We teach all the above. All the above. It just depends on that's one piece. That's piece number 3, right? Raising capital, right? But you need to find good deals. You need to analyze them correctly. You need to raise capital. You need to close and manage. There's 5 aspects to buying apartments, right? You're talking about one aspect of it. So if that answers that question for you. Yeah, great question. So just kind of showing how this thing's going to break down for you, okay? So $50,000 out of pocket, okay? But the craziest part about it, just so you know, is you're not even doing that because just so you know, in this, you get what's called, and Suvi knows this, you get what's called an acquisition fee because you're the general partner in the deal. So you're bringing in 10% of the money. You're getting 40% of the deal. So you're scaling 4x on your money. That makes sense. 40% of the ownership, 10% of the money in, and then you get what's called an acquisition fee that's built into your closing costs for you putting this thing together. Typically 2 to 3% of the purchase price. So follow me. 50,000 in the deal, 30,000 comes out at you pretty close to the close of escrow. So you're technically out of pocket 20,000 bucks. Out of pocket. And now you have control of a 15 unit, $1.5 million apartment building. And that's how you pull it off. And example after example after example. Okay. So that's that end of it. So the belief that you need a lot of money just isn't true. So let me ask you this question. If you found a 20 unit right now that made financial sense, meaning it produced a good 15 to 18, 20% annual return on your money, could you get access to $20,000 to $50,000 to do a deal like this? Yeah, you absolutely can. Everybody can. But we need to jump off the cliff, right? Allow the how to show up. You know, it takes a little bit of courage to pull that off, but you can absolutely pull it off. So you're going to come in with 20K to 50K. You're going to get 40% of a deal in terms of ownership. You have 100% control of it, though. Keep in mind, difference between control and ownership, two different things. You're going to get an acquisition fee, and you're also going to get paid 5 to 8 different times throughout owning that apartment. And we can get into that, okay? So the belief pattern that you need a lot of money to get started, it just is not true. It's just not true. And Suvi can attest to it. I know they've done a lot of that, and that's great. Yeah, Suvi, that's amazing, by the way. I've done over $50 million in raising money, right? We're doing a $25 million raise right now on our fund. So I love it. That's part of the aspect of it, but you don't start there. My first raise, just so everybody understands this, my first apartment deal outside of kind of the family, multifamily, kind of 1 to 4 unit stuff, because anything under 5 units is considered residential, just so everybody knows. Once you hit 5 units or more, it's multifamily. So our first multifamily was 27 units in the Midwest. Okay. And I had to technically raise $899,000. I'd never raised money before. I didn't know how to do it, both legally and financially. I'd never done any of this stuff. I had to be mentored through it and handheld to know how to do it. We were able to do that with about 5 to 7 people. The reason we were able to do that with 5 to 7 people was because the deal made financial sense. If the deal doesn't make financial sense, you're not raising any money. It's really hard to raise any money if the deal sucks. Like, it's not hard. But if the deal makes financial sense, raising money, it'll chase it, right? Money loves money. Money loves making money. Money loves speed. It's just the way it works. You just need to have a deal that makes sense, a process to bring in the money, right? And all of that. A pitch deck to explain it, but we get into that. So let's not overwhelm you. So let's keep going. So that is the belief number 1, and we've thrown that out the window for you, that you need a lot of money. It's just not true. Would you agree with that now, that you can kind of, everybody in here can say, look, I don't need a lot of money. If I had $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to invest into apartments to control it, I can do it with that to get started. So now belief pattern number 2, that is too complex. It's for experts only. And in order to do it, you have to have many years of experience and all this other stuff. And it's just not the case. Everybody in communities, everybody that joins things, people online, whether you're Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, all of them, they're not experts. Any of the people that are in our communities, they're not experts. They're normal people that have started no different than I did, right? I was not an expert in it. I had to go out to a conference and do all of this stuff to learn it from A to Z, but I was willing to take that initiative and make that happen. I wasn't just going to sit and wait for things to happen to me, right? No one's coming to save you. You've heard that before, right? No one's coming to save you. If you want something, go freaking get it. Go get it because you deserve it for you and your family, okay? John Ward. It was actually Dave Lindell, by the way. Great call on that. It was Dave Lindell. Yeah. I didn't get to, meet with him and stuff. I didn't join any of his stuff, but I got to meet a lot of people out of his conference. It was actually a pretty good conference. It was good stuff. It was very good stuff. So what's funny about that is, so multifamily, they think it's too complex and stuff, but it's just not. And so you get into it and you realize, okay, the process, it may seem intimidating. I agree with that at first, but it's really just about following a step-by-step blueprint rather than knowing every intricate detail of finance or law. You need something that breaks down every step in actionable, understandable parts for you. Would you agree with that? That empowers you to navigate the market confidently, even if you're starting from scratch. Because that's really what it is. The process seems intimidating at first. It was intimidating to me, everyone. But it's until you get like a step-by-step and you really are handheld and guided through it. When you realize the value of you having this skill set, it's worth its weight in gold. If you can find good deals, you can analyze them quickly, right? You can put money together through quote unquote syndicating, right? And close deals and manage them. You're extremely valuable. You're solving big problems for people because people need to invest. They want to invest in real estate. That's not your problem. They just need a deal that makes financial sense and then a trusted partner to partner and invest with. And the money will find you. It will find you. So kind of some funny things, because give you a good example. Akis, right, that I'm going to show you her video, English second language, and she's also in the medical field. She figured it out. She was not an expert.
So as soon as I listened to the crash course, I got hooked. It was so funny because that one is a small course. Yeah. However, I think I shared with you before that one of the parts that I enjoy the most is that you simplified language for many of us, and English is my second language. So I really enjoy the way that you were teaching and in
You're
this.
saying and being able to kind of explain the complex details and nuance in a layman's terms, simple format to where it actually resonates. Is that what I'm gathering?
Right, because there is a lot of terminology out there for real estate that seems very intimidating, especially for those who are new to the real estate investment business. And you made it so easy and simplify it in a way that for me resonates. It reminded me a little bit of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. It's like that.
I will take that compliment. Very good. Yeah, I mean that has been told to me a few times that one of my gifts is taking something that's complex and simplifying into streamlined, just simple to follow steps. It's just some people have a gift, and that's what I've been told that is one of mine. So I appreciate that from Aitkus. Steve, this is actually one of my favorites. So Steve in our community, Upper Midwest, does a deal in Cleveland. First deal, 39 units. He's just a contractor, guys. He figured it out. Super stoked for you. Everybody give Steve a clap. So 39 units. That was the Cleveland deal we were talking about. How many stories is that thing?
It's 4 stories, a little over 40,000 square feet with 4,000 square feet of commercial space.
Right.
It's very challenging.
Is that the one you're getting the tax advantages on and all that stuff too?
10-year tax, 100% tax.
Yeah, he got about almost 100% tax abatement on that thing because it's in an opportunity zone in Cleveland, and the city really wanted that thing done, so he was able to put it together. Pretty sharp, pretty amazing what he was able to do with that, and I love that. And then just the last example with Brian, he's a dog walker, you guys. He has a dog walking company, lives in Los Angeles, California, ended up doing a deal in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 22 units, okay? Not too complex for a dog walker. Yeah, I love that. It's even better when they post on Instagram. A couple questions came in. Mike, he's just in the middle of renovations as we speak. So that's a pretty recent deal for him. So he's doing the full-blown renovations. That's about a $2 million reno on that one. It's a multi-story building, totally gutted. So I'd say by the third quarter this year, he should be leased up and done and occupied on that one. So that's a pretty cool deal. Does anybody know this gentleman? Pretty cool guy. I followed him even in my life and my journey in the apartment space, you know, because this guy's a big wig in it, but does some amazing stuff. But I'd like to know who here knows Ken Melroy. And if you don't, that's okay too. So what's cool about him is in college, he got his first investment property in 1990 while he was a freshman in college. He had no previous experience. He wasn't an expert. Today, $3 billion, 9,000 units in 5 states. And he's regarded as one of the industry gurus, Ken Melroy. Got a ton of stuff on YouTube, right? If you want, ton of stuff on YouTube. Pretty cool guy, but not not an expert by any means when he got started. And then, do you know any of these faces? Some people you may like in these photos, some people you don't. I don't know, but you get to learn a lot from them. And I've had the chance to breeze by several of them. Fabulous folks in general. Beardy Brandon. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to know that guy. The guy is a complete badass. Beardy Brandon. He used to run Bigger Pockets. Did a lot of podcasting with him, biggerpockets.com, and all around the U.S. And now he's running a bunch of different stuff. Big mobile home park guy. Just does some incredible stuff. Ryan Pineda, Robert Martinez, Mr. Uncle G, Grant Cardone, and then Carlos Reyes and stuff. The point being, none of these people were experts either. None of them were experts. They had to start from somewhere and nowhere. And then they just figured it out. They jumped off the cliff. They allowed the how to show up. So this belief pattern, once again, that you have to be an expert in multifamily to be able to do this and learn it and figure it out and execute, it's just not true. I mean, so at this point, I mean, let's take the first one that you need a bunch of money. We know that that one's out the window. take the belief that you have to be an expert. Does anybody in here feel that you have to be an expert to do this? To actually pull this off? That if you had a community and people guiding you through and to execute at the different levels that I talked about, right? How to find good deals, how to analyze them quickly. Is it a good deal or not? How to put the money together financially, both legally, everything, right? That's the financing part, capital structure. Close, escrow, and manage. That's the 5 aspects of buying an apartment building. And you do not need to be an expert. You just need to know how to do it and be handheld through it. And nobody should have that feeling you have to be an expert. You just don't. You just need to know how to do it, and you need some handholding. That's the whole process. No different than I did, right? Nobody gets to where they want to go alone. You do it in partnerships and collaboration. You do it in partnerships and collaboration. That's how everybody wins, okay? That's how everybody wins. It has to be a win-win situation for it to go. So deals are hard to find. Deals are hard to find, and the market is oversaturated. The hardest growth pain I'm dealing with are self-management systems before stepping to the next level. Yep. It's called limiting belief patterns, Clint. Limiting belief patterns. We all have them subconsciously. Do you know how I got rid of mine? You want a little personal insight? I don't know if anybody's done hypnotic reprogramming before. Has anybody done hypnotic reprogramming before with a clinical hypnotist? They go in there, they hypnotize you, they put you down, they find these limiting beliefs and they will remove them subconsciously in your brain cells. It's some wild stuff. I did it for about 1.5 years, still do it occasionally. But it was a major movement for me in my mindset to get me where I wanted to go, to get past a lot of these false belief patterns. So hypnotic reprogramming, Google it, look it up. There's probably people locally in your area, clinical hypnotists, they do this stuff. Be very, very helpful for you if you feel like you stop yourself from taking action, okay? So that's very, very important. So the deals are hard to find and the market is oversaturated. That's a belief pattern. And then people have this false belief pattern, but there's only 2 ways to find deals. And if anybody's in here that does multifamily currently, you know that there's really 2 ways to find deals. Direct to broker, that's number 1. Number 2 is direct to owner, direct to the sellers and the owners. For number 2, we have a software now called RealEstateRadar.ai. RealEstateRadar.ai. It's a software that we developed to help find off-market, pre-market deals direct to the owners anywhere in the United States. Okay, anywhere in the United States. It's killer. Commercial deals, multifamily, and residential too, but it's killer. So that's direct to owner. The direct to broker approach I want to talk about. So let's get into that. So if you do things alone, okay, if you do things alone, deals are hard. They're hard. If you do things alone, deals are hard. But direct to broker. So let me ask you this. What if you found a community of other investors doing deals around the United States where you could learn insider techniques to equip you with the skills to uncover off-market gems by using brokers in their on-market listings, okay, where you could see the deals that others miss, and it would provide you a market ripe for potential, right? Prepare you as an investor to not do it alone, because that's how the direct-to-broker approach works. Crexi Online. So yes, so to touch on that, Sultan, you can use Crexi or LoopNet or CoStar.com to get access to the on-market deals. But just so you're aware, Sultan, what you're looking at on Crexi.com only represents about 40% of the actual inventory. You're missing out on 60 to 70%. All you're getting on Crexi is the leftovers. Just so you know, you're seeing leftovers. You're seeing the deals that don't make financial sense, which is why I'm pretty sure if you're looking at them, you're going, damn, this doesn't make a lot of sense on a lot of them. And you have to then reduce, right? Adjust pricing, make sure you're looking at things the right way because they're not going to make financial sense. Why? Because as deals approach the market, just so everybody understands how this game works, the brokers are the gatekeepers. They're out there dialing for dollars, making phone calls to all of us as owners of the apartment building saying, would you like to sell? Would you like to sell? Would you like to sell? Would you consider an offer? Would you consider an offer? Would you consider an offer? At some point, people raise their hand and say yes. Now the broker takes that deal, he puts a nice marketing package together, and he sends it off to his group of investors of about 25 to 50 people so it can sell. And if it does not sell in that group of 25 to 50 people, then they go and they stick it on Crexi.com. or LoopNet or CoStar. So by the time it makes it there, it's the leftovers and it's the stuff that's overpriced. Hence the reason it's there. And then you got to negotiate that thing down to have it actually pencil and make sense. Does everybody compute that? And you're probably saying, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But that's how the process of commercial real estate's done. It's not like residential where they go stick it on Zillow. or Redfin or Realtor.com. It does not happen that way. It's behind the scenes first, then it goes to the websites for the leftovers. No, it's not 6 months of that. It's about 2 to 3 weeks, Sultan. About 2 to 3 weeks in the pre-market phase where it'll sell. Because most of the deals sell in the pre-market phase. They never make it to the websites. What you're seeing is the leftovers. That's the 40% that didn't sell. The stuff previous to that, about 80% of that stuff's going to sell in the pre-market phase before it ever hits that website. Okay. Oh, CoStar is expensive, which I use with a group. Yes, it is. That's very true. Reonomy is good for data and stuff, Samuel. It's great website for data. Correctsy.com is a good one. It's a free marketplace. It's a good kind of free marketplace for seeing a lot of these deals, but they're pre-market, or I'm sorry, they're leftover deals. You're not seeing the actual deals. You're seeing about 40% of them. So the real question is, how do I get access to the direct-to-broker deals in the pre-market phase? And that's what you have to learn how to do. That's what we teach. That's the community. That's how it all works. You got to get to the pre-market, because that's where you're going to get to see all the deals that actually make sense. So when you take the financials and you look at them and you're like, huh, okay, that thing pencils. Let's make an offer. Versus the stuff you're looking at on the websites, you're looking at it going, crap, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So then you have to adjust a lot of things to have it make sense. That's the key. Absolutely. That's right. And that's the stuff that we teach. That's the direct to broker approach. That's way one. Way two, you got to get direct to owners, right? You got to get to us first before we're even talking to the brokers. Well, you do that with softwares. That's why we developed our own and we put it out. RealestateRadar.ai. RealestateRadar.ai. You can look at it. You can try it out. It's up to you. But very, very good software for multifamily commercial deals and residential, all the above. If you're a wholesaler, it works great too. But it's a great direct-to-owner approach for finding off-market deals. My problem is brokers try to stay in the middle, which I have problems with. What do you mean in the middle? In the middle between buyer and seller? In commercial real estate, there are no buyer's agents. So Samuel, the game in commercial real estate, buyer's agents really don't exist. I mean, they do a little bit, but not like residential. So in commercial space, you're going direct to the listing agent and you need to discuss with them. That's how that game goes down. So it's direct to the brokers, the listing agents on that. The seller's broker. Yeah, I mean, listen, the seller's not representing you. The seller's agent's the listing broker's not representing you. They're just there as that gateway keeper. But what you can do, and this is how it typically goes down, Samuel, is ring, ring, ring. Hey, hey, John, Mr. Broker, I'm looking at your 15-unit deal here in the Midwest, wherever that may be. Tell me a little bit about it. It's been on market 15 days. Any interest in it currently? Kind of get a little small talk with them. And then if it's in your market, hey, I'm going to be coming out there taking a look at it next week. I'd love to tour the property and meet you as well. And the whole purpose of that is not the property. The purpose of that is to meet the deal maker in the market. Because once you tour the property and you find out that thing doesn't make financial sense, your next conversation is going to be, hey, John, broker, look, we're going to buy here. I want to buy in this market, but this deal's maybe not going to make sense. I'm sure you're working on things that are pre-market, some stuff that's coming on, you're working on right now that you can maybe show me that I can get access to. And that's how you're going to build a little relationship. Because once you get the pipeline coming through with those brokers, that's how you access it. But look, there's ways to do it, things to say, what to do, what not to do. That's the direct to broker approach, right? You have to learn that concept, but it's very valuable when you do. And then the direct to owner through software. Okay. So does that make sense? Cool. So the fact that deals are too hard to find and the market is oversaturated, that's only if you're doing it alone. If you're doing it alone, it's hard. If you do it together, it's easy. You have to do it in collaboration and it's easy. You do it together, you win. You do it alone, it's hard. It's that simple because that's how you actually pull it off. But there's a little bit of a nuance and a science to it. There's things you got to learn, what to say, what not to say, terminology. But this is all things it's extremely valuable because now you're going to get like a pipeline of stuff flowing through your emails. I get it all the time. I just sent a deal off to one of the folks that's coming into our program that's in Oklahoma. Came across my desk yesterday, a little 34-unit deal in Oklahoma, pre-market, completely off market from the broker relationships I built over the years. But that's how it goes down. That's how it goes down. Awesome. So I want to show you kind of some case study stuff now. We're kind of blending single family with multifamily and what's the difference between them, okay? The biggest difference is the monthly cash flow. Remember I mentioned to you, because people ask, hey, how can I produce $10,000 to $20,000 a month in free cash flow, passive income from apartment buildings? And the answer is 3 to 4 deals. On average, if they're 10 to 30 unit deals, 3 to 4 deals will produce that. Because on average, in your pocket, 3 to 4 grand. Okay, 2,500-ish up to about 4,500-ish, depending on the deal, in your pocket every month from a 10 to 30 unit apartment building. So you put 3 or 4 of those together, you can do the math. Okay, you're there. In the time frame to do that, I mean, 24 months, 36 months on the outset, right? So if you plan it out, you step it out and you learn it. I mean, if you wanted to say adios to the 9 to 5 and 2 to 3 years from now, you can do that and be completely independent of it. Just depends on where you want to go and what you want to do. So that is the biggest difference, is the monthly cash flow, the profits from a sale and refinance, tax benefits. Remember I said the 5 different ways you get paid? If you go flip a house, you get paid what? 1 way, 2 ways, maybe. You do short-term rentals, you're getting the cash flow from it and the profits from a sale. And then if you do wholesaling, you get an assignment fee. So there's ways you get paid with that. With multifamily, you're getting paid 5 to 8 different ways. Acquisition fee is number 1. That's number 1, comes off the top. Asset management fees, that's paid monthly. Tax benefits, you get those annually. Fees at the sale when you sell the property. Finder's fees for finding deals. If you're just a great deal finder, you are extremely valuable. Like, we literally have people in our community that are just great deal finders, period. And they bring deals to the table. The community loves them because they're pre-market and off-market. So what do? They buy them. And then that finder gets the money. Happens all the time. If you're a good deal finder, you're very, very valuable because you are number 1 in the process. If you can find deals, you're very valuable, because that is hands down the number 1 most challenging part, is to find good deals. But that's why we have a process for it, to be able to pull that and throw that out and actually find good deals direct to broker, direct to the owners. So you get finder's fees, construction management fees, all the above. So 5 to 8 different ways. It's super cool. So this is literally a 31 unit deal for $19,000 out of pocket to own this 31 unit deal. And let me show you how we did it. Let's break it down financially first, and then I'm going to show you the cash flow that I got from it, from this deal. So we bought this thing in the Midwest, 31 units for $1,525,000. We did renovations on it to renovate the entire building, interior and exterior, for about $400 grand. We had about $225,000 in closing costs. Okay. All in at $2.15 million. $2.15 million all in cost. So this is how the thing structurally broke down. We went out and got a 70% loan to cost, about $1.5 million. Once again, getting that loan was easier than getting a $200,000 house loan, because the deal made financial sense, produced numbers. The lender's like, dude, this thing's great. It pays us every month. Here's your money. Here's your money. And then we had about $645,000 that we had to bring into the deal as down payment. Now, most people, maybe everybody in here who knows, this would stop most people, because they would say, well, dude, I don't have $650,000. And my response is, I know you may not. I didn't either. Okay, we had about $80,000, $90,000 in cash at this time, but we knew we could come in with 10% of it, which we did. That was 64 grand. We were able to raise 90% of it, 581,000, from about 7. Like, this one has 7 people in it. 7 people were in this deal. Okay, it was a combination of friends and family, and then we got a little bit of seller financing on it. But $581,000 came in from OPM. So we got an acquisition fee, because remember I told you that's way number 1, of about 45 grand. So 64 came in, 45 came out. We were out of pocket $19,000. Literally out of pocket. Had control of a 31 unit, $1.5 million deal in the Midwest. Pretty wild. It's pretty wild. Versus, let me ask you a question. If you went and got a $500,000 single family house, and it was a rental property, so it's not primary, rental house, the bank's going to require minimum 10%, but likely 20% down. That's 100 grand. You can't raise 100 grand on a single family home because it's not investable. If anybody watched Shark Tank, and then people come in and they pitch their stuff, and they're like, yeah, your company's great, but it's not investable. Single family is not really as investable on a rental property basis, but multifamily apartment buildings are. This is why it's easy, because there's more skin in the game. There's a bigger pie to go around. So people can dive in and get involved and get their returns and make a bunch of money. So this is why it works. Okay, this is why it works. So let me show you the cash flow I made on this thing. 31 units, 24 months later, after we bought this thing, 31 unit deal, 24 months later, okay, 24 months later, we went and did a refinance. Has anybody heard of a cash out refinance before? Cash out refinance? Okay, this is where you're able to refinance the property because the value's now gone up. Because our value is now $3.6 million. Remember, we renovated this baby? Now we're up to $3.6 million from renovations. Took out a 70% loan on that. We pulled out $2.5 million, right? We paid off the $1.5 million loan that we got before. Paid back the $645,000, which was all of our money in the deal. Then we pocketed another $350,000 on top of that. Best part about it, some money's tax-free. Does everybody know in here that when you pull out debt, you get debt, it's tax-free money? But yes, it's tax-free money. So this is why cash out refinancing and debt is good. Good debt's good. Bad debt's bad, right? Credit card consumer debt, right? If you're not paying it off every month, it's bad debt because it's not, you're not tying it against an asset that's appreciating. But good debt is a loan against an asset that's appreciating. That's good debt. That's good debt. Yep, you do it with single families. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, Clint. Absolutely. And then you get an asset management fee, which I got, which was 1%, 40% of the profits on the cash flow. So to put this in perspective, I was making $2,000 a month times 5 years. That was my small percentage in the deal. It's $120,000. Then my net profits from the sale were another $470,000. So I made $590,000 on a $19,000 investment. That's 32x on the money, guys. I mean, this return, I don't even know what it is per year, but it's stupid. It's stupid. Asset management fee of 1%. That's per month on the revenues, Clint. Per month on the revenues. So keep this in perspective. So for $19,000 out of pocket, I made $590,000 on it and owned a 31-unit apartment building. Where else are you going to pull that off and get paid 5 to 8 different ways as you're owning this thing and cash flowing monthly and getting all this stuff coming your way? You don't. And then on top of that, the tax benefits. I didn't pay tax on any of that because I did cost segregation. I bonus depreciated other assets to offset that taxable gain. You need to learn that, which we teach, which is great. Bonus depreciation and cost segregation is hands down #1 thing you got to learn. What were the responsibilities of the property? Well, we had a third-party property management company, Bert, managing the day-to-day. So I did not handle tenants and toilets. Okay, that was handled day-to-day. My job was to make sure they were doing their job. So I'd be checking in with them once a week. We'd get some reports. We'd have conversations, and then that was it. Okay. When I was out there, once the property in the beginning, you go out there frequently, but then once it's stabilized, you're maybe once a quarter, maybe. It's pretty standard, Samuel. So Samuel had asked, did you negotiate your percentage split of 40% of the general partnership? And the answer is I didn't negotiate it. It was just part of the deal. Meaning when we came in and we offered the deal out to investors and people, it was a 60-40 split. So it wasn't really negotiation, right? It was a 60-40 split. That's how we presented it. And the deal was a good deal. So the money came in. Yeah. How do you pay off the $2.5 million you pulled out from the equity? Did the income pay that? Yes. So the bank didn't give us this loan unless they knew that the cash flows from the deal were going to pay this loan. We're going to pay this loan amount. No different than the first time we got the loan. The bank makes sure that the property pays it every month. No different than we qualified for this one because now the property is producing more cash flow, can pay that debt service every single month. Okay. Beautiful. So you need to have saved $65K. Can you help with network for investors, or is that 100% on you? Both. So Jarrett, we do both. So inside the community, yes, people do invest in other people's deals. That's #1. But yes, we need to teach you how to raise money. Listen, I can give you fish and you can eat for a day, or I can teach you how to fish and you'll eat for a lifetime. You need to learn both. You need to learn both. Because, I mean, just giving you stuff doesn't do anything for you. That's fine. We do that. But we also need to teach you how to do it too. So now you can go feed and eat for a lifetime. It's very, very, very important. So my promises to you when we kind of came about this is, how do we buy a 10 to 30 unit apartment deal in the next 90 days with $20,000 out of pocket? I showed you that. Okay. So my promise complete. The belief that you need a lot of money to get started and do this, you really don't. I showed you how for $30,000, $40,000 out of pocket and or even less than that, right? Because you're getting the fees and all that stuff with it. You can go buy an apartment building and you guys start, call it small, but a 10 to 30 unit. Notice I'm not coming in here and saying, go buy a 50+ unit apartment deal. You don't have a chance in hell pulling that off unless you have a partner that's already done it or you've done it. because the bank's not going to give you a loan. No one's going to look at you. You're going to be dealing with brokers who are more sophisticated. They're going to not deal with a mom and pop. Newbie ain't going to happen. So you stick in the mom to pop space for your first couple deals. Once you execute that, now you can go play a little more in the big boy status. But 10 to 30 unit deals is very mom and pop-ish. They expect you to be a newbie. They expect you not to really know everything. That's why you can operate. That's where you start. And once you actually walk before you run, then you can go execute at a higher level. But this is how you do it. Right? There's a lot of gurus out there teaching people, hey, go out and buy a 50 plus, 60 plus, 80 plus, go big on your first one. Dude, no. I understand why they're teaching that, but you have like, your chance of doing that is like that big. Unless you have a partner that's executed at that level and or you have executed that level, okay? So the belief that you need a lot of money is just not true. It's just not true. Just not true. And the belief that you have to be an expert and that's too complex, just not true. And the belief that deals are hard to find and it's oversaturated, it's just not true either. Because we're able to show you all those and why that's just not the case. Does the acquisition fee count as part of the closing costs? It's involved in that. Yes. So your closing cost number, Clint, inside of that is your acquisition fee. So the total cost of the deal is built into that. That's correct. Great question. Jared, you're welcome, Jared, for doing it every Tuesday. Yep. Trying to help people out, man. You know, whether you come into the community or not is irrelevant. We want to help people get to where you want to go. Your dream, your passion is ultimately at the end of the day, what you're trying to accomplish. And it's for you and your family and getting you from where you're at and where you want to go. If we can be a part of that, awesome. If you want to just watch YouTube and figure it out on your own, totally awesome too. I mean, all works. It just depends on, do you want to collapse time and do you want to collapse mistakes? Because that's really what it comes down for people. Do you want to collapse time and collapse mistakes? And that's why people come into communities versus maybe trying to figure it out on your own. And both ways can work. It's not that one necessarily works more than the other. It's just people that want to fast track things and don't want to get a bunch of mistakes and lose a bunch of money. They come into communities and they learn together and they collaborate. So about 2.5, 3 years ago, people were like paying attention to what I was doing because we were posting a lot of it online. And they were seeing how we were scaling from like 20 units to 1,000 units. And then we're trying to go to 10,000 units. And they're watching this happen. So they start approaching me, asking me, Justin, how are you doing this? And can you teach this stuff? Initially, I'd say, I don't know if I have the time. I don't know. But we put some courses together and then we put them up online so people could take them at their own pace. And people loved them. But people wanted more handholding because they could get the information, which was great. But what you do with the information is what makes the difference. That's how you move the needle. The information's great, but what you do with it and how you use it is how people make the change in life. So that's how the community came about. So we started the community with the whole notion in mind of, hey, what if we could create a community of well-trained investors that we've helped? They get into their first deal, their second deal, and by nature, they're going to want to go bigger and do bigger deals. And by that, they're probably going to want to partner. So that gives us the chance to grow our portfolio. We're trying to go to 10,000 units. You may be trying to get your first one. Awesome. That's how collaborations and partnerships work. That's how everybody gets a win-win situation. So that's how Multifamily Schooled, the community, was founded. On that premise and that core value of, hey, let's create a win-win for everybody and rock and roll. Because then we can partner with people. People can partner together. You can do capital, raise capital, find deals, close deals, manage deals, all within the confines of an active community. So that was the premise behind it. And then on top of that, we had to find a way to, okay, direct-to-broker approach is cool and it works. We're using it. And that's how we got started. But there's also another approach, direct-to-owner. And how do we do that? So that's how the software got created. That was realestateradar.ai. And that's rock and roll. You can find off-market deals and pre-market direct-to-owners using AI technology, all these overlays and stuff we have. You can look at it on that website I shared with you. It's pretty cool. You can even try it out, see if you like it, see if you don't. But that's the direct-to-owner approach because we had to solve both problems. How do we get direct-to-broker and how do we get direct-to-owner? Because remember, I said the number one thing you need to figure out is how to find good deals. And if you can source good deals, you're going to win because the money will find you. So direct to broker, direct to owner, and we solved both of those problems inside the community. That was the big thing.